What's up guys? So we're here doing another video today based on issues that have come up from a recent Train Your Ass Off, which are proving to be pretty common trends even with pretty high performing or experienced people. And this one is all about lats. Now, pretty much all of us train them, but it turns out that a lot of us maybe aren't training them in a way that's particularly efficient. So we're going to go through a couple of things here to show you how to get more, primarily out of your lat pull downs, but hopefully also have a slightly better understanding for how your joint alignment, your grip, and all that type of thing adjust what muscles are going to be biased or primarily recruited when you're doing your pulling work. So hopefully you can have a little bit of a better understanding of just how your back muscles function. Now, I'm going to preface this with, when we talk about the lat pull down, we are going to work off the presumption that you're doing the lat pull down to effectively target your lats. I know that sounds really dumb, but you can bias your biceps into it. You can bias your upper back into it considerably more, as we'll see. And some people are going to be doing them with that purpose in mind, in which case what we're going to go through is not what the tweaks that you need to make. But if you are doing them for your lats, then you need to make those changes that we're going to discuss. So first off, we need to understand, what do the lats really do? We understand they're a pulling muscle, but what part of the pull, what angle do they work most at? So let's look at probably the single best lat isolation exercise, which is the straight arm pull down, okay? So when we do this, you set up like so, and we're gonna pull with straight arms, as the name suggests, down to the hips. So think about what's happening here. We've got the upper arm, which is the part of the arm that the lat attaches to, is coming towards the midline of the body. And it's also very narrow to the body. So basically, what you need to think about it is that the lat gets the elbow not just towards the body, but also down low. So any pulling movement that we do that involves the elbow coming down in space and towards the body is going to involve the lat. And the more that elbow drops down, the more lat is going to be involved. So for example, we take something like a face pull on a cable machine, right? That would be the polar opposite. See here, elbows are flared and high. That's why we don't really get any lat involvement in that movement, because there's none of this involved. There's none of this pulling down to this midline position down here. Now bear in mind that the lats do start to lose a lot of leverage also once we go above about 90 degrees. So it's this movement from here where they're primarily doing their best work. So now we need to think, how does this translate over to lat pull downs, and why is that important? Which we're going to show you now. Let's look at probably what is the most typical way we see lat pull downs being executed when we get lifters come here and perform them. I'm going to use this neutral grip handle here to make my life a little bit easier, and because it was on there anyway. So what we'll commonly see is two things. There's going to be a lot of extension. So rib cage up, arch in the back. And then when there's a pull, it's a very wide pull, like so. So the elbows are very flared out to the side, right? And this would be quite typical of what we see when someone performs a lat pull down. Now, if you go back to what we discussed on the straight arm pull down, that we need the maximal amount of movement down here, and with the elbow staying in close to the side, performing a lat pull down out here with the elbows wider, regardless of your grip on the bar, you could be narrow and be out here, you could be wide and be out here, is going to be less lat dominant. Not none, but less, okay? Now the other thing we have to contend with here is that when we go into extension and we arch up a lot, what we effectively do is we shorten the lat. Lat attaches down here, up on the upper arm. This is why, for example, if you're doing an overhead press and you can't get to that lockout position without going into that extended arch position, it's because your lats are tight, usually, right? You've got the attachment up here, the origin down here. Because that attachment is trying to get further away from the arm, it pulls the rib cage up. And we see the very similar thing here. If your lats are tight, you can't start at the top of a lat pull down without being in extension. So it could be a mobility thing, or it could just be a habit. So if we are in this position where the lat is shortened to start with, we can't get as much range of motion out of it, which means we're not going to be able to recruit it as well. So there's two tweaks that we kind of need to make here. First one is going to be the elbow position. So we want to get the elbows back. So let's go, this is our lifter uncued, arched up, elbows wide. So what we want to do, instead of being here, we want to cue them to get the elbows under the wrist. See the difference there? So we were here, this very flared out, more upper back dominant position. Now we're going to go here. Cue to get the elbows underneath the wrists and the wrist straight. Now, can we keep that as we go up? So what do we have to do to achieve that? We have to squeeze the elbows in and not let them flare out. So we pull the elbows in at all times, not just on the way up, but then on the way down, we tuck in, we tuck, we keep them forward, and we pull to here. This is the end of your lat pull down, okay? Because let's say I had like a regular thin bar handle on here, what we commonly see then is also too much range of motion. All this is getting is rotation at the shoulder. There's nothing going on at the lat that's good there. The lat, or the roll of the lat, should we say, ends when you can no longer keep the elbow stacked under the wrist. If I pull any further, I go here. That's not more lat. If anything, we're disengaging it there. So we're here. This is the same rule for like an overhead press or even a chin-up. This is the start or finish position we want. If you're doing your chin-up, you pull, keep the elbows tucked forward, presuming you want to hit your lats. When you can no longer do that and you would have to start this maneuver, your lats are done. So you don't need to go past that position. Wherever the bar is level to your face or your throat, whatever, that's you done. If you want to do muscle ups and stuff, obviously that's different, right? And it's the same when we do our military press. Where should a military press start? Military press with the barbell should start the lowest position. You can maintain this because A, it allows the lats to stay tense and support the bar, and it gives us a nice vertical forearm with which to press up into the bar. Tangent, I'm sorry. So we're here. So the first adjustments we've made is, in this position, twist your elbows like you're trying to point them forward in front of you. And when you maintain that, twisting them forward at all times, you are instantly going to get into this more tucked position that's going to be way more lat dominant. So that's step one. And then the other thing is to get them out of extension. So instead of them being sat in this upright posture here, we want ribs down, pelvis tucked under, this stacked. Because now the lat is not starting in a shortened position and we can fully lengthen and shorten it through the movement and get more recruitment. So our lat pull down is going to go from looking like this, elbows out, chest up, pulling high up on the chest like so. We're now going to start stacked. So head up, ribs and pelvis stacked, elbows tucked in. Now we're here. Now when you do this well, not only is it going to be considerably more lats, it's going to be very hard work on your abs, because basically what's going to happen is your rib cage is pulled down the whole time this load is trying to pull you into extension. So if you are feeling your abs work while you do this, then you're on the right path. Now that is going to stay the same no matter what grip you use, okay? If you're going to use like a close supinated grip because you want to hit your biceps more, that's cool. You can do that, but you're still going to follow the same cues. You're going to be here. Now I've got this really narrow grip, which will be more bicep, but I'm still going to follow the same cues. The ribs are going to be down, pelvis is going to be under, my elbows are not going to be flared. That will take the biceps out of it. Twist them in and forward. And now from this position, I pull down. And when do I stop? I stop when I can no longer keep the elbow stacked under the wrist. So that would be too much range of motion. If I stop here, I've still got range of motion. I can go and keep that alignment where I want. But it's going to be the exact same principle, right? This is why a wide grip lat pull down is much harder to execute well, because the elbows naturally want to flare out. It's going to be more difficult to keep them tucked under. Now there's only so wide we can go here, but if you look, now when I do the same cues, ribs down, elbows tucked in and forward, now when I pull, this is as far as I can come. If I were to get lower, I'd have to flare out or rotate the shoulder under. So this would be my finished position for a wide grip lat pull down. Now personally, I don't think it's that beneficial, because is it more lat dominant? Sure, but you're also sacrificing range of motion. So the lat's doing more of the work, but there's also less work. So that's up to you. If you like them, by all means. But for most, a regular kind of just wider than shoulder width grip is going to be probably best for the lat recruitment, because most of us are going to struggle here. A lot of us don't have enough rotation here. If I had a straight bar on here, I would have to work harder to get that elbow stacked underneath, which is why these neutral grip bars can be quite handy, because by putting the hands in a neutral grip, the elbows are going to come in and it's going to be easier to keep in that forward stacked position. So if you're really struggling to do this, you probably have quite kyphotic, rounded shoulder posture. That's okay. We can start with a neutral grip, which is going to put you in a position where it's going to be much easier to access that position to get the lats doing their job. So now what we can also do is look at how this might translate to other pulling movements. So as we've just seen, just because you're on a lat pull down does not mean you are effectively recruiting or using your lats. Now, if that is you, how we were showing that before, and then you make those adjustments, be warned, you will probably have less load on there to start, but your lats are going to be doing considerably more of the work. So the question simply becomes, why are you doing them? For most, that's going to be a considerably better trade-off, because your lats are probably weak, which is why you're avoiding using them in the first place. But just to make the demonstration about how the upper arm angle that we use to pull changes what the prime mover will be. So that also means, like, take for example a seated row. It's not just an upper back exercise. We can change what's going on with it based on where we put the elbows, what position we pull the bar towards, or even the grip width. So most of us do a seated row usually to hit the upper back, the rhomboids, the traps, so on and so forth, right? So if we're going to do that, let's say we want the carryover to our bench press. So we're going to kind of use maybe what's similar to our bench press grip. In this position here, if I purposefully flare out the elbow, right? So I go here, almost like I'm trying to snap the bar. So there's more pressure on the thumb side of my hand here, and now I pull. I get a very flared upper arm angle. Okay, this is going to be a very upper back dominant pull. Okay, you can literally just put a light load on there, snap the bar this way, and then row and just hold it there. See what's working. Okay, now let's say I go in this same position now. Now I twist the elbows the other way. See how now they point down to the floor. Now there's a lot more pressure on the little finger side of my hand. And I'm also going to try and pull this just a little bit lower towards my stomach. Now look at the difference in the upper arm angle. I haven't even changed the grip width. And straight away now my touch point has changed massively. Now look at where the upper arm is relative to the body. Look how low that elbow position is. What do you think this is going to be working more of? This is going to be considerably more lats. Whereas up here, same movement, way more upper back. So just that difference from intent on how I grip the bar. I go from snapping the bar this way, which elevates the elbows, rotates them up, and then I pull, gets me way more upper back action. I now twist this way, put more pressure on the little finger side of my hand, the shoulders depress, and the pull comes down low, and I get way more lat. Haven't changed the attachment, haven't changed the grip width. Now if we think about that again, let's say we have a really weak upper back and we want our seated rows to hit the upper back maximally. Well, then we could potentially exaggerate that even more by going a little bit wider. So if I go slightly outside that grip where I just was, and now I go with that intent of rotating the elbows up, putting more pressure on the thumb side of my hand, now when I pull, I get slightly more elbow elevation, slightly more upper back dominance in the movement. That's cool. That allows me to isolate that better, and if that's a weak point for me, it makes it very difficult for me to cheat by getting the lats involved, because it's hard to pull my elbows down and pull down here. That's cool. That means it's going to be harder for me to bias my strong point in there. But let's say my lats are weak and I've only got this handle. Well, now I can go to something like a supinated grip, which is narrower, and now I can get the elbows really close to the side of my body. So we're here, now supinated grip, twisting the elbows down to the floor, and now when I row, the elbows basically hug the side. Now I can get more lats. It's also going to be more biceps, sure, but there's also going to be way more lats involved here in the row than there would be than if I was pulling this bar any higher up towards my torso. So in the same way that the lat pull down can be biased towards the lats, the biceps, the upper back, your seated rows, just about any other row you do, can also be biased in that same way. So first off, remember, just because you're doing what is a lat exercise doesn't mean it's necessarily hitting your lats very well. And then also, you have the ability to take a certain exercise and bias it towards whatever your goal is very, very easily by just adjusting the grip width, how you put pressure on your hands, and ultimately change that upper arm angle relative to your body. So there's way more variation in play here than most people give it credit for. You just need to remember, why am I doing this exercise? What muscle am I trying to hit? And then how do I adjust this setup so that I do that properly? Hopefully that helps.